Hey, a quick note before we jump into the show. I just want to thank all 13 of you who rated and left a review for me on iTunes. Now, I thought we could do a little bit better than that, but nonetheless, I'm excited about the growth of downloads I'm getting on this brand new baby podcast. I'm asking for your rating and review, good or bad. It just needs to be authentic. Now, did you know that you can give me a 5-star rating and not actually have to write a review? And if you do write a review that makes me laugh, or cry for that matter, I'll read it on the show. Here is my current favorite review on iTunes. I started listening to this podcast 24 hours ago, and I've spent the last 23 hours as a professional photographer. Well, sort of. While listening to Leon's voice, I literally watched as my body began transforming into a man DSLR hybrid. My hands, once weak and stupid, are now giant knobs that adjust the aperture within my giant glass eyes. My legs, once useless appendages, now function as an equally useless two-legged tripod. Before listening to this podcast, I used a camera. Now, I am a camera. Okay, I know that one is totally ridiculous, but I still want to throw a high five to my friend Dan. Thanks for taking the time to write that review, my man. It was super creative, and people, I just want to have some fun. So, thank you. Enjoy the show. Hello, friends. The following interview is the first of a mini-series that I'm excited to talk about. The topic, Workspaces. I want to dive into this topic and talk about all the pros and cons of each scenario. No matter how much shooting you're doing as a photographer, there is always the desk work that needs to be done. You know, writing blog posts, phone calls, emails, editing, and of course, the consultation. So, where do you work? Here are some common workspace situations I see for photographers, and they all range greatly in terms of expense, comfort, and convenience. First up, most tackle the desk work at home. This could be the kitchen counter, a small corner of a guest room, or a dedicated room. If this is you, likely you escape to the second option, which is the local coffee shop, where you can crank through some emails and maybe even edit some photos. Third would be co-working spaces. Now, these have become insanely popular here in San Diego. Usually, this is some highly inspired, creative space dedicated to people doing work. Now, it's a great upgrade from the coffee shop in many ways, and I can't wait to dive into that in a future episode. Fourth would be a private or shared studio space. This would be where you might have a shooting space for portraits, a comfortable space for consultations and print sales, and of course, that spot for desk work. The following interview was recorded on August 17th with photographer Sarah Parent. Her situation is a hybrid. She actually has a studio space on her home property, which I think is kind of ideal. Clients get a full service experience in a beautifully designed space, and she gets the convenience of no commute. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Well, tell everybody about yourself. Give us an introduction. Where do you live, and what do you do for fun? What do you do for work?
Okay, great. My name is Sarah Parent. I live in West Lafayette, Indiana. For fun, I hang out with my family. So my husband, my 2 kids. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. And have a puppy and a new kitty that I just found in a tree this summer. So we like to, So we rescued her and brought her home. We weren't intending to, but she became a part of our family. And so then, we like to go on walks. We play a lot of board games, go on road trips. So just when I'm not doing photography, I spend a lot of time with my family.
Amazing. We're kind of on track. I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old myself, 2 boys.
Oh, great. Oh, I have a boy and a girl.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about workspaces. What do you do for work? And talk to me about what your workspace situation is.
Well, I'm a wedding and portrait photographer. And I actually, when I very first started, it was back in 2002, I used to meet people inside my house. And then when I had kids and that whole situation changed in my house, I decided to, we built kind of a small little tiny house, a little small office in our backyard. And it was lovely and I loved it. But then as my family grew and things changed, I really had envisioned wanting to have my own studio space and my own space, like a larger space to meet clients and kind of expand my business. So I work in a space that is attached to my home but has a separate client entrance. So they are able to come in. There's a separate, there's a bathroom that's separate from my house, which is really nice. There's a hair and makeup area. So when I do portrait work, they can get their hair and makeup done. There's a dressing room. So that's kind of when I also have a space where I, do my editing and answering emails and that kind of thing.
Very nice. So your clients can drive up, they kind of go through a separate gate, and they can enter into the meeting space. Now, here's what I love about this kind of idea is that you're not scrambling to pick up the place before your clients come. Probably, right? Is that the case?
Exactly. Yes, exactly right. It's really quite nice because even when I had a smaller space that was separate from my home before, if a client even needed to use the restroom, my brain was like, oh no, is my house clean? Is my bathroom clean? And that kind of thing. So now I have the space, I can keep it just for work exclusively. I know that it's going to be client ready if people were to stop by. And that's been really great.
And that's the funny thing about kids, right? I mean, we love our kids and can't imagine life without them. Yet there are those moments when you are so frustrated because you maybe prepared for a client meeting or prepared for guests to come over and things were cleaned, but then you turn around, right?
Yes, exactly.
And everything is just completely destroyed, what you just did. Right. So I love this idea of having a separate space. And so you actually shoot and do kind of your clerical stuff there as well.
That's right. Yeah, I do everything here. It's kind of there's kind of three separate rooms because when you walk in, there's a client meeting area and also my desk. And then through a set of barn doors is the shooting area, the studio. It's about a 22 by 26 foot space. And then there's a spiral staircase up to a loft where they can, so it's kind of a whole client experience when they come in. I wanted to create something unique so that way, it's just two kind of separate spaces within that one large space.
That's beautiful. So if you're just having a consultation, the barn doors can be closed and they can just kind of stay in this nice little cozy reception area and visiting area. What does it look like? How have you decorated your workspace?
So I'm able to display my work, so that's very nice. It's have enough wall space to display things. I have a couch and a chair for when we do have consultations. I can sit with people there. There's a TV on the wall when I do online order sessions. I mean, not online, in person. Excuse me. Ordering sessions, they're able to sit there and view their photos. If brides come in, I have my albums out, and there's an entryway as well where I'm able to display large pieces of my work. So that's been good.
Mm-hmm. And so you've had an evolution of your workspace over time. What was really important to you when it came to putting this particular workspace together?
Well, I wanted something that was going to allow me to have enough space to build and try things creatively. I can even use my outdoor area, like my backyard. I'm planning to expand a little bit back on there. It was important for me to have a space, where I could come that was close to my home. I wanted that short, really, really short commute. So that was just really important to me to be able to have that. I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of design the space the way I wanted to and take the time to do that, because it's a space I've been dreaming of for a long time. So just having, a separate client meeting area, separate shooting area, and having all that, work cohesively in the design was important to me.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'm curious about how you set things up. What's the dynamic with the family? So when you have a consultation and it's summertime, like we're right at the end of summertime now, so
right.
Kids are probably going back to school, but during the summertime when you're still hard at work and you've got client consultations and the kids are, riding around on bikes and doing the kid thing, what are the rules of engagement here? So when you have a client consultation, what do you tell the family and the kids, and where are the boundaries?
Well, I've been doing photography for basically, their whole life. So they've started from a young, I've trained them up well. So they know that if I'm meeting with the client, it's a do not disturb situation. And when they were little, sometimes they'd knock on my door in the back and, it happened. So,
sure.
But now they're at the age where they know, there's some separation too between the house and my office. So they know if I'm meeting with people that that they should be quiet and well behaved and that type of thing. And they're great kids. So I've got my 13-year-old, actually, he cleans my studio for me now in the summer. So they're back at school now. Yeah, we start pretty early in Indiana back to school. So they're already back in school. So So yeah, they're good. The one thing I have noticed though is like with my puppy and the kitty,
yeah,
they're probably harder to manage because what my puppy does is comes in and because it's like having babies all over again. My puppy comes in and thinks that everybody is there to see her. And so she runs in and she's been super sweet. Like if I have a family portrait, she runs right into the family portraits and sits right down. Like she thinks that she's in that family. And, and so some people are animal lovers. But what I'm finding is some people maybe not as animal lovers or maybe have allergies. So I've been kind of trying to be aware of that and teach my puppy manners.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
All right. And so I was just curious. I mean, I have a home office that I work from, a couple of days out of the week. And if I'm ever recording or I'm doing a live stream or something like that, I actually have a sign that I've printed out. And it's just a goofy sign of like a little girl who's like putting her finger up to her lips. And it just says, shh, dad's recording, And I put that kind of at the bottom of the stairwell so that when the boys run upstairs to go to their room or whatever, that, they're reminded of that. This is kind of a quiet zone now. And specifically if I'm recording or doing a live stream, I try to find a way to get them kind of down the block a little bit. Hey guys, take the dog for a walk, or hey, it's time for you guys to go ride bikes with your buddies, be gone for 30 minutes or more, please, kind of thing. But it's just that stage of life. Kids are a part of the equation. And, it's just, I'm a dad and a husband first, and then I'm, second, a businessman. So, you just got to roll with it. I think it just is part of the territory. Good. Were you on the live stream yesterday where I told a funny story of, when I was a photographer doing a consultation at my apartment?
Yes. And your roommate came in, right? Or not your roommate, your person that was living in your apartment complex. Is that what it was?
Exactly. So I had a client consultation that was, barged in on by a good friend of mine. He's still a great friend to this day. It's funny, but this was like early 2000s, like 2001, maybe. I was shooting weddings a lot, and I was meeting with clients in my apartment. The funny thing about that apartment complex is that it was right under the flight path here in San Diego. So anytime a plane takes off, it's just like this, it just shakes the building, it's just really loud. But it was funny. I was having this meeting and I had these albums out on the table and was showing them. It was going really well. It was a nice young couple. They were, excited to get married and excited to hire a photographer, and things were going really well when my buddy just kind of opened the screen door and walked right into the living room. And it just was a super awkward moment where he didn't know what was going on. And I think he just thought they were other friends of mine, but he just didn't recognize them. And that was kind of the culture of that apartment complex. We had so many friends that lived there that we all just were always, it was like living in a dorm, basically.
Right.
we were fresh out of college anyway, so it was just kind of natural. But that was one of those moments when I realized, it's probably time to start doing something different than meeting clients here in my apartment. And, so that was just a moment for me where it was really clear. And, currently I have the home office where I like to work, for certain tasks. And then I go to, different offices or co-working spaces around San Diego, depending on what kind of tasks I have to do for the day. So I find myself kind of in one, if I'm in one mode, I kind of want a specific environment. If I'm in a writing mode, I really want a specific environment. If I'm in a creative mode, I want a creative environment. Among the different things that you have to do as a photographer, do you find yourself, maybe taking your laptop from one place to another within your studio space, to do work? Or do you kind of have, a steady routine on where you do all of your tasks?
I have pretty much a steady routine on where I do everything. So I don't really take my, laptop. I have my desktop and I stay kind of in one place, and I have, everything kind of set up the way I want it to be. So within the space, I kind of stay at my desk when I need to do kind of the general office task and things like that. It's nice having the studio space so that if I want to try out, different lighting setups, or if I have a creative idea I want to try, I can do that in there without having to go very far or secure, a location that I would need to use. So that's been really great.
That's awesome. Now, I actually kind of want to ask a bonus question here.
Sure.
You're actually a client of ours. We get to serve you. And I'm just kind of curious, what are some things, I'm going to put you on the spot, what are some things that you do instead of the edits? So the moment you send off a job to us, to do the color correction. There are other things that you're going to do. Now, those other things could be leisure or they could be work. What are some things that you choose to do instead of sitting at the desk and doing the color correcting?
Well, I'm able to do more photo shoots that way. So I'm able to book out my calendar more. Now, I should say I'm trying to work on my work-life balance. Of course, having a home studio is not as easy to do, so being able to spend more time with my family. I send the wedding out, so when that's done, and then I get it back from y'all, then I can do the tweaking and things like that. But it's been really a lifesaver for me. I'm telling you,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been great as far as my stress level and trying to get things done. I can do more marketing activities or more meeting with clients, and I'm actually doing the things that I really like to do instead of sitting behind my computer all day. So that's been really nice. Yeah.
It seems like to me, now I know this is probably different for everybody, but it seems like to me that I don't often meet photographers, say like at a convention or WPPI or, wherever else. I don't often meet a photographer who says, I became a photographer because I love color correcting.
Right.
I mean, for the most part, we love getting the camera in our hands and we love interacting with the clients and going out and creating something really cool. And then, there's a certain love for the edit, of course. You're getting feedback on your work and on your settings and the things that you're trying and that kind of stuff. And yet there is a certain monotony, especially when it comes to editing a wedding, where it just kind of feels like, this isn't what I signed up for. I mean, that seems like a common thread among our clients, but how would you describe that task of doing the color correcting on a wedding for yourself? Is it something that you dread? Is it something that you can do? Is it something that you just feel more productive doing other things? Like, how did you decide that it was time to find a good service to help you with that?
Well, for me, it was a matter of, I started doing weddings when I was shooting film. So, and I worked in a dark room, but I never really liked handling the film processing to begin with. I preferred just doing, using the negatives to create enlargements when I was in the dark room. So for me, when I used to shoot a wedding, I would take it to the lab, drop it off, it'd come back. It was fabulous. And so, having then when we switched to digital, having all that extra workload, of doing all the color correcting and things like that, I can do the color correcting. I definitely took all the classes that I need to do, and I continue to do education in Lightroom and Photoshop and that type of thing. But it was very freeing for me to hire a photo editing service, because I didn't have to sit and do all the, tweaks like you would do if you just had film and send it away. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm from the same era. I was shooting weddings in the late 90s and early 2000s. My first college job was actually working at a camera store that had a mini lab, and then I went on to work at a pro lab myself. And my job was all digital retouching there. But I'm very much from that film mindset, and it is interesting as I've just kind of watched the evolution of our industry go from, that model where you drop everything off at the lab to, no, I need it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm the artist. I'm going to create this fabulous look, to now I feel like it's swung back the other direction where most people are going, you know what? It's great that I can, but it doesn't mean that I have to. And so I think that, a lot of people are finding that balance of sending it out and yet still retaining some control to do on their side. So anyway, that was kind of a little side conversation, but I figured since you are a client, it would be fun to ask you some of those questions as well.
Absolutely.
But back to the workspace in regards to your workspace now. I mean, from where I'm sitting, it sounds ideal. I mean, it sounds like you've got it dialed. You've been at it long enough. You've got your workspace perfectly set up. But is there anything that you wish you could change about your workspace?
Well, I think about that a lot, and especially the pressure of having designed the space. You always go back and think, would I have done this different? Would I have done that different? I tweaked some things at the beginning, kind of switch. Originally, in the original design, I would have people walk into my studio, but then, studios have their own set of, props and lighting and things that maybe are too messy and wouldn't want to walk somebody through that to get to the client area. So I flip-flopped that. And now looking at it, there's not a whole lot I would really change. I kind of wish I'd done the walls a little different so I could display things a little differently, but that's about it. I mean, if I had to do it over, I probably wouldn't change very much.
With regards to the walls, do you mean like maybe a more modular system so that you could switch out the artwork that's on the walls?
Well, actually, I do that. I do switch things out. So like if I have seniors or portrait clients coming, I can switch that out versus when I meet with brides. I do switch the photos on the wall. Yeah, so that I don't, because brides want to see wedding pictures. They don't want to walk in and see, senior portraits or anything like
exactly.
that. But, So I do that, but I wish I had more space to display it. I guess I need to I just need to spend a little more time rearranging things, I think is what I need to do on the walls. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's really fun. I hope maybe we can get a couple of photos, and I can put together a blog post for this episode, and I can see a couple of photos of your workspace. And that way the listeners can take a look there too and see what's working for you and be inspired.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for the conversation today. Thanks for sharing your details about your workspace and everything. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Of course. My pleasure. This show is brought to you by Essential Edit, editing and design for photographers just like you. Yes, Lightroom editing, retouching, and album design, all done to your spec, your style, so that you can focus on the essentials of your business. Instead of dreading the edit, spend that time booking more clients, networking with vendors, or spending more time with the people you love. It's super affordable, 3 to 5 day turnaround, friendliest service on the planet, and yes, satisfaction is always guaranteed. Let's get you started. Send us some sample images at essentialedit.com.